appreciate you taking the time to come. I know the alternative is to be on the lake on your boat and some beautiful day, but we appreciate you coming to the community meeting. We're going to have more of these in the future, but this is sort of our first one to start to kind of share where we are and get feedback and support as well. So in terms of our objectives for today, we're going to kind of introduce the Friends of Mill Pond initiative, so to the broader community. Obtain feedback and input on this initiative, including what are our project goals, how can we collectively help ensure that we're a success, and then explain opportunities for all of those in the community to get involved and help support the Friends of Mill Pond. And it's been great. A lot of people are reaching out and saying, how can I help, how can I help? So really appreciate that. So this is our volunteer leadership committee. Some are here today and some not. I'll start with John Erickson.
Hello, everybody.
And John is leading as co-chair with me in legal and finance and grants. I'm Richard Gerstein, co-chair, administrative and city liaison. Annette Doherty is not here, and she's been doing all the great marketing materials that you see. So the website and Facebook and stuff, she's done an amazing job putting all that together. So that's been terrific. Sean Madden.
Hey, everybody. Hi, Sean.
Like myself, know more by his wife than himself. So. Doing economic development. Ryan Nyberg couldn't be here. He's doing dredging construction. He wisely chose to focus on getting people's boats in the water instead of being here. Rachel, who everybody knows, is working economic development, marketing, and communication fundraising. And then Greg Poulos, right here, who's really focused on a lot of the testing that we need to do, the environmental improvements that we're going to make, and everything else around that. So understanding of where we are and where we're trying to go. So great committee that we have leading this. So what are we going to cover? So we're going to cover why is the Friends of Mill Pond an important initiative? What is currently under consideration as part of the plan? Now that doesn't mean that we're going to do it all under consideration, and it doesn't mean that we're not going to do other things, right, that make them up and great ideas that people have. This is sort of how we've scoped it out today. That's why we're getting feedback from the community, and this is a long project, so lots of time to input. Where are we on this long journey? What are the next steps, and how you can become involved? So we hope you'll ask a lot of questions. So feel free to ask questions along the way. I'd ask that if it's more of like a comment or an idea, let's hold that to the end. But like if you have questions like clarifying the content that's being shared, by all means, please ask those questions, all right? So what's the background? So Mill Pond is pretty essential to the lake. And I'm not sure everybody thinks it that way. In fact, I talk to a lot of friends who live on Green Lake and they don't even know where Mill Pond is, to be honest. You'd be surprised what percentage of people don't even know that's what this body of water is called, and even sometimes it's even connected. It's important to water circulation. It distributes oxygen, it prevents stagnation, and it removes a lot of harmful waste. And the reality is that part of what's been happening, invasive species and years of silt buildup is happening. It's becoming much less navigable than it used to be. So a lot of places you can't go anymore, and even the main in and out is becoming much less navigable. Similar to Silver Creek, these bodies of water have a big impact on the lake's health. And if left alone, one thing I think everybody, the DNR, everybody agrees on is this will become a swamp. Right? Eventually we'll fill in, become a swamp, and become land, and it will look a lot like Silver Creek is today, where people can't take boats anymore. It is a vital waterway for Green Lake and surrounding towns, because by the way, one of the biggest things Mill Pond does is control the water that goes down the river, right? And there's certain amounts we have to provide. We can't do too much, can't do too little. We have a great boat ramp there called the Canal Street Ramp that takes a lot of pressure off Dartford, but that's becoming less and less used because frankly, you really can't put a lot of boats in the water unless you're really a fishing boat. That's about it these days. It's a great calm area for kayaking, paddleboarding, and fishing. And frankly, people used to sail on it. Joe Norton told me they used to water ski on it in the old days. Maybe not their boats do, but they did. There was a lot more fishing on it than there is today. And then, like I said, it controls a lot of height from the lake. And then, importantly, we believe that there's a great opportunity to drive economic growth for the north section of town as part of the Main Street initiative, which you're going to hear more about today. Right? Our town tends to kind of, people come at the front side of town at Dartford, they walk up halfway to town and kind of stop. right? And we have all this stuff in the back, great shops, great stores, we have vacant land that could be built if there was an opportunity for things there, that would be great. So, this is the potential, and this is the reality. Okay? So, this is what it's becoming. And you can see when it's cleaned up, right, at the beginning of the season, end of the season, just from it's a nice, beautiful body of water, right? You can see all the things you can do on there. Can't do those today. So when we started to talk about this, a lot of people said to me, oh, it's going to be too expensive. Then I heard the DNR won't allow it. Then we heard it only benefits Mill Pond residents. It won't happen in my lifetime. There's lots of interest, but no leadership. Nobody's going to do it. Who's going to pay for it? It just is what it is, right? And I would say a lot of things in this town, right, that need to get done. There's a lot of people say, oh, it'll never happen, right? But amazing things have happened in this town, like the whole Dartford Bay that was done. Town Square is an amazing thing that's been done in this town. There's lots of great things that have been done through a joint effort of both the community and the city to get things done. So we're going to have to overcome a lot of these things, but I really think we can. And it's going to be through a partnership. So the mayor came to me and asked if we would create this Friends of Mill Pond more formally. It was sort of a loose group before, and do it as a private city partnership. So we are today, we're not an official city committee by choice, where it's called a private city public partnership, which gives a little more flexibility. And we are a nonprofit, or just supposed to be becoming a nonprofit. I'm just waiting for the paperwork to come through. So we did a little study on the Mill Pond history. So it has a long history as part of Green Lake. It has been 35 years since the last significant effort to ensure the health of the pond and longevity. So I pulled out just a few things. There's more on our website, but in 1845, the dam was first created to raise the level of the lake and form Mill Pond and Dartford Bay, which I didn't realize it also formed part of Dartford Bay. And then in 1905, it was bought, and some more rocks and boulders were put in so to raise the west end of the lake even higher by Mr. Lawson at the time. And then in the earliest 20th century, a bunch of women's organizations initiated an effort to transform the area into the public park, which we know as Friends Park, and which is going to get a whole new refacing, once again, due to a great public and city partnership. And then in the 1980s, the dam fell into disrepair, and there was a significant fundraising campaign, and construction was finished in 88 and dedicated. And then in 89, there were some other problems, and got some money from the state. They raised more money and made the repairs to shore it up to what we know today. And then at that time, they also added a bridge that goes across that has all the flower bridge that everybody takes pictures on today. So a lot of the things that have happened since 1845 have really been through the public and the community coming together, recognizing the importance of this body of water, and really making sure that it stays an important part of our city and our community.
Richard, why don't you tell everyone what that picture is on the right? They probably don't realize.
So this is Mill
Alpine.
Pond before, so this is West Bay Court and East Bay Court.
And that was Alpine, or the resort.
Is that the resort that was there?
Yeah.
So that was what it was like before everything got built up over here and,
Yeah.
yes.
What year was that?
Well, it looked like.
60?
That was the 70s.
Yes.
I think it was the 70s, I think, is what I was
Well, we
told.
moved up here in 76 and we had our, I think the one year we had our Labor Day picnic out there.
Yeah.
That could be wrong.
Dale
I think
Fisher
it
was the
could have
first
been-
one on the end there. I think his house was the first one that got built there. That's my recollection.
Is that the
Well,
teak
those
in it?
were all cottages.
No, the cottage is there, but I think over here,
Oh, yeah,
Up
okay,
on the-
over there,
yeah.
yeah, because
That was
all
done in the
old.
60s.
60s that was done?
60s.
Okay.
Is that the teak canal right now, Richard?
This is, I believe this is West Bay Court, and that's East Bay Court.
And then would that, no, are those still there?
No, is it over, is there?
It's over.
So West Bay's over here, this is
Yeah.
East Bay, and then this is the little small canal.
Isn't
Yeah,
that
that's
Spurley's
that.
right there? The one that's got the round in it? Because
Okay,
all the other ones have T's in them.
okay, yeah,
Right,
So
gotcha.
that's Spurley's Resort. That was done in early
yes,
60s.
Yeah.
yes.
Which bridge is that?
Way before me.
That's the bridge
That's
outside.
23.
And there's like Sherwood up right.
So that's, over there, that's
The one
Lawson
on the
Street.
top.
Yes.
right?
It's
Lawson,
that's
that's
it.
Yep, right.
So a lot of history.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna have John come up and start talking a little about what our goals are. Thanks, John.
Thank you. So as Richard was saying, it really does take the community to get these kind of things done. As you see, he was talking about the history, the reason why it's important, is because every main event that's happened historically has happened because people like yourselves and us, the community, has gotten together and made it happen. And so when we started talking to the mayor about this, we realized that this is another circumstance where it's only gonna happen when all of us get together and do it together. That's why it's so important that everybody's here and that we hear from everybody. We want all voices heard, all the input here. And so everything that we show you here today is subject, obviously, to everybody's contribution, opinion, and voice. So having said that, here are some things that we have identified as we've come along in the last 8 or 6 months, 6 or 8 months, and some goals that we have. And as we talked about, the health of the pond is critical to the health of the big lake. And so without the mill pond, there's no drain to the lake. And if the mill pond does what the experts say that it will in time, which is fill in completely, it will become a swamp and eventually land, and then the lake will get backed up at the Lawson Street Bridge. And then we know what happens when water backs up. You think of a clogged sink. So our number one goal is to maintain the health of the greater lake by taking care of the health of the mill pond. And then growing from that, we want to get it back to the place where it used to be, where it was a place for family recreation, etc. So things like you see the paddleboard and the kayaking, the things that people don't want to do in the mill pond anymore because it smells towards the end of the summer and it's mucky and bad, and we want to bring that back. And in addition to that, we had such great success with the wharf over on the other side. The idea is to sort of imitate that success and work so that we have a wharf over in the mill pond over near Adams Rib, so that we can help the north side of downtown. So that's 3 of the goals there. So, and then in addition to that, we have decided that, including everybody in this plan and in this program, we wanted to make it so that it was ADA compliant. We wanted to bring in veterans, we wanted to bring in first responders, we wanted to bring people who have sacrificed and given to the greater community. So a part of that, and in keeping with that, at that Canal Street launch, we want to have an ADA compliant launch so that we can invite veterans, etc., so that we have wheelchair access for kayaking launch, for canoe launch, etc., so that our nation's heroes are included in it. And in addition to that, with the accessibility to the Canal Street, as Rich was saying, this launch has become so silted in and so filled in with invasive plant, and it's so shallow that it's not really usable anymore. And it would be an excellent, like you said, take relief from the downtown launch. So we developed as a committee our vision and mission. You can see them here. The vision to restore Mill Pond long-term to serve as a recreational and economic centerpiece accessible for the entire Green Lake community. And by that, we mean residents and visitors alike. It's not designed to be for the people that live on the Mill Pond or people that live on the canals. This idea is for everybody that's in Green Lake, everybody that comes to Green Lake, everybody that enjoys the big lake, and then hopefully now the Mill Pond. So the mission of the Mill Pond, the Friends of the Mill Pond, is to develop and implement a comprehensive plan to restore the Mill Pond to its natural beauty, ensuring it remains clean, navigable, and accessible for both residents and visitors. And as a result, be able to create a new economic opportunities for downtown Green Lake and make it a unique recreational destination for everyone, while ensuring water health both in Green Lake and downstream. And as Richard also said, this is a long-term plan, and this is going to take a long time. And that's why it's most important to start now. They say the best time to plant a tree is today and 20 years ago. So the best time to start this plan is now, because it's going to take time. So the key elements of what we are trying to accomplish here, first and foremost, is the dredging of the canal. and I mean of the mill pond. And we'll talk a little bit more in depth about how that dredging will work and where the money's gonna come from a little later on. Second, the Canal Street boat launch revival, you see a rendering here. It's not exact, it's a thought, it's an idea. It's a chance to sort of start to visualize what it could look like. And you can see there that, you know, it's a usable launch. You see that the ADA compliant canoe and kayak over to the side over there, and a refurbishing of the pier that's kind of in shambles there. So over, as you see over here on the other side, on the other shore, you've got the idea is to have this wharf to sort of similar that's done on the other side of the lake or over the side of the town, and have the boats parked there so that there's more foot traffic, et cetera, driven to the businesses, et cetera, restaurants, the businesses that are on the north side of town, over the hill. Everyone kind of stops halfway, it doesn't come full, and those businesses, those storefronts, et cetera, have a tendency to suffer. So by bringing some boat parking over to this side, the idea is to bring people here. You can see that's Water Street there.
Is that where those piers are now?
Yes, right.
And I'll tell you, one other thing I should also add to that is, you know, one of the biggest complaints I've heard from people is, I'd like to bring my boat into town, but I'm a 50-50 that I can't find a place to park it when I come into town. So I just don't bother coming in. So economically for town as well, having more boat parking is an important thing.
Those boats look like you're gonna have to blow the bridge in order to get them underneath there, so, you know, is that part of the goal?
We're gonna talk about the bridge a little bit later, yeah, for sure.
Cause you're talking about a new dam if you do that, you know? Cause if you start opening up that hole there, that you're gonna have water flow that's gonna have something better than what's there.
Yeah, so right now what we're talking more about is raising it versus widening it from that standpoint, because that seems to be the biggest issue in terms of people coming under it. That's a lot of discussions we have to have with a lot of engineering and the DNR that we haven't had yet. So that's really something that has to be discussed with a lot more information.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Everybody that's a resident of the Mill Pond, when you came and bought your land, were you aware that the bridge was where it was and what it was?
What?
I'm just asking.
Yes.
I can hear the question.
What I can't hear you what you're saying.
Well, I'm just curious, you know, when you come to town and you're looking at where you're gonna park your boat and everything, you know, your expectations, if the bridge is only so high, you know, I mean, that bridge cost me millions of dollars in the boat business because I couldn't put big boats back there.
Right.
Sean knows that for a fact. But we also have to look at the health of the lake. If you start modifying that causeway there, you know, when my family came here in the 1800s, all that was a creek back there. All that pond is trying to do, it was a marsh, okay? That's all it's trying to do right now. And I understand, you know, dredging and everything else, but forever, that will try to do that because that's what it tells itself to do.
Sure. I
You know,
appreciate
so I
that.
mean, you're not only looking at dredging now, it will be something that you'll have to do periodically forever.
Understand.
I mean, it's just, you know,
Yep.
I'm trying to be honest.
No, it's good. No, absolutely. Once again, for sure. Yep.
I have one other question too. The other picture you showed where the boats are launched right now, you showed possibly the land being fixed a little bit more on the on the east side.
On Town Square side?
Yeah. Now, right in front of that, there's a bunch of lily pads. And DNR says you cannot touch them. Now, if the DNR is putting all that lock on what can be done, and they say you can't take those away, that messes up your whole path.
These are all the discussions that we've had initial discussions with the DNR about this, and we're gonna have a lot more discussions with the DNR about this, right? And these are the sort of things that we're gonna have to work and challenge and have discussions on and push on where appropriate and where we can't, right? So once again, this vision, what we'd like to do, but those are all discussions that we have to have, like I said.
So nothing has been done yet. No, don't.
We are at the infancy.
You're being brought in.
We are at the infancy. We wanted to get in early to the community and not tell you, here's our plan, but show you what we're trying to accomplish generally and get feedback and input from the community, just like you guys are doing, which is great. And then we've had initial discussions with the DNR, but we're gonna have a lot more discussions. And we've also talked to a lot of other communities who have done similar projects, like North Lake did a huge project down there because they had an issue. They had a dam that the DNR took away. When they took the dam away, all the silt behind the dam came pouring in, and one end of their lake became unnavigable, right? So they did a big project to go and clean that up so that they can maintain navigability on that end of the lake and keep it healthy, because once again, when it gets shallow and you get a lot of silt, then you get a lot of algae, you get a lot of phosphorus, you get a lot of other things that aren't healthy.
So
Overall.
the DNR has not been brought into this at all?
We've had initial discussions with the DNR, but no, we have not gone in and tried to sell them a plan of what we're trying to do, because as you'll see, it'll come up, there's a lot of testing and other information we need before we sit down with the DNR. And that's some of the first thing that we've learned from the people who do these projects is, here's the information you have to have before you can actually have a productive conversation with the DNR. We'll walk you through that.
Thank you.
Is somebody from the, GLA here?
They're not here, I don't believe, but we've been very closely working with the GLA throughout this whole process. So one of the things you'll see is that we're now in their master plan, and the previous Mill Pond was not part of the GLA master plan. So they're still focused primarily on the lake,
Okay.
but they put Mill Pond in because they understand the importance it represents as part of the overall lake health.
Got it.
So an additional goal is how this project would complement Rachel's new playground park, which is the centerpiece of that area here, and we want to have them integrated together. Again, this idea with the ADA compliant, which Rachel has made a priority for the playground park, and the idea is to have that, if you remember the wharf idea that was over here, that would be connected by a path, so that everything is integrated and that everything all works together, and the idea is the design elements would be the same. And again, these are ideas that we're bringing to you now for your input and consideration. So now we talked about the bridge. And the bridge, we talked about this being a marathon and not a sprint. So we sort of see this at this point as a project in phases. And the first phase is the stuff that we talked about before, and then the bridge should get to sometime in the future. But the bridge is a key element to it, in that the bridge is going to fail its inspection. What we're hearing is that by 2030, it will have to be replaced. That will be done by the Department of Transportation, as well as Green Lake kicking in a little bit for it. And any modifications that are made to the current design of the bridge would have to be, the funds would have to be provided by us. And so the foundation, the basics, the structure of the bridge would remain the same, except the thought right now is to simply raise it so that we don't impact its role as not only a dam, but it also is a conduit for utilities that go through there. And all of those things have to be taken into consideration. In addition, they don't make bridges the way that they used to. They used to make bridges so they go shore to shore. So now they start with a longer ramp that goes up, that starts on the road, and then another ramp. And it's more of an elongated system with the bridge being in the middle. So the idea is, because the water flow is controlled by this bridge, which is really a dam, the idea is to not widen it and let more water come through, so that you would have to have everything that you were talking about, Dennis. So that's down the road, but it is part of the plan, and it's something that's going to happen naturally, because as the Adams Rib bridge failed and has to be replaced, it's going to start by Rachel next year.
They say May. I have not actually, I think they're still discussing things. So
Okay.
they told me initially May of 2026.
So once it fails inspection like that one does, it has to be replaced. This one is scheduled to fail its next inspection, and then they have to start the process of making the planning, collecting the funding, et cetera, to get it replaced.
What's important is we just want to be part of that conversation early, right? So we just don't want to just wake up one day and say, oh, they've got plans for the bridge, we go, oh, I wish it would have been great if we sort of had some conversations and talked about it today.
So one of the things that we've done together as a committee is that we have identified stakeholders, and those are people that have an interest in it and people that we think that can provide us with guidance and input, et cetera, partners that we want to work with in this project. And again, if you can think of someone else or another organization that should be involved, by all means, let us know. We want to make this as inclusive as possible. But as we start out, right now, number one is the community. Right? Those are the stakeholders, the real people that use and live and come to Green Lake are the real people that this is for. It's for everybody's use and enjoyment and preservation of the lake for generations to come. So that's number one. Number two, stakeholder, Mayor Radis did have the foresight and the wisdom to realize that this needed to get done. And he talked to Richard and myself and had several meetings and formed a committee. They provided invaluable support and guidance. And periodically we have gone so far to the committee and presented them where we are, just give them updates. Again, nothing set in stone, but just letting them know our progress. The Green Lake Association and the Green Lake Sanitary District, we have been working with them. We've had several conversations with them. They have invaluable historical knowledge. They have relationships with the people within the DNR, the people who are water management specialists for this area. So it doesn't make sense to reinvent the wheel, it makes sense to work with them. And as Richard said, this time around, the Mill Pond is part of the Green Lake Watershed and Lake Management Plan. So our efforts that we're trying to do with the Mill Pond are being represented to the DNR by the GLA. So they are clearly like a big sister partner for us in this project, invaluable, and the same is true at least at the sanitary district. They just have so much institutional knowledge. They know what needs to happen in order to begin a dredging project. They know how to present things to the DNR so that the DNR is receptive and not immediately a non-starter. They know about, like we were just discussing, the opportunities for collaboration with them with regards to they are already completed herbicide studies for the sediment testing and the fish study and the aquatic plant management plan. All of that has been worked on by the GLA for a long period of time, and they have roped us in to their project so that as we move forward, we have them with their guidance, their resources, their talent, and their institutional knowledge. So they're a key stakeholder in this. Again, the Green Lake Chamber of Commerce and the business leaders, we've been trying to meet with business leaders. We presented sort of an idea about the committee, similar to what we're doing here today, to the Green Lake Chamber of Commerce. Mark was gracious enough to have us come and speak to them. We're trying to create that boardwalk and docking along the south shoreline to impact the economic development of the north side of town. We have been giving them periodic updates. They give us input. We want to work closely with them about their plan to try to infuse some energy into the north side of town. Again, we are integrated with Rachel's Playground Park with the ADA idea. And again, we have identified that there are 13 VFW and American Legion posts in the area. And so those veteran organizations provide an already in place infrastructure of people that have an interest and people that we want to have input and people that we want to be welcomed and make accommodation for them so that they are a part of this. And we feel that using those organizations by reaching out to them and bringing them in, getting their input, what they want, what they need, things that we don't understand, that we see them as key stakeholders. And then obviously the DNR, and we've talked about the DNR. We're planning and preparing with everything that we're discussing and everything that we'll continue to discuss today to present to the DNR. You don't just go to the DNR, you gotta get your ducks in a row first. And so that's what we're doing. So with that, I will turn it over to Richard again, and thank you.
Great.
Yeah, great.
All right, so part of the process here in our approach to going to the DNR is doing some testing before we do that. And essentially we're looking at two types of tests that we need to do in the Mill Pond. We are talking and working with a couple of engineering and consulting firms that have done work in the area, very familiar with working with the DNR and essentially what they want to see, their love language, if you will, in terms of just what they want to hear when you go to have a discussion with them. So we're looking at a couple of tests. One that will basically.
Question.
Oh, sorry.
So How did you come up with the list of things you need to have before you go to?
It was really discussions with some of these consultants and engineers, right? And their experience, some discussion with the sanitary district team and the Green Lake Association, just giving us an idea of, there's no like, here's the rule book that says this is what you gotta have before you go to talk to the DNR, but these are the things that in their experience, you probably wanna have when you go and have that discussion.
Will there be DNR representatives that come down here and just kind of give you a
Uh,
preliminary bit of feedback?
I think what the plan
I'm
is.
just trying to, are you gonna be successful in the meeting?
Well, that remains to be seen, right? But I think what we know we have to take a partnership approach with the DNR, right? We want to be sensitive to their goals and objectives for this body of water, right? And I think if we take a balanced approach with our discussion with them and say this is what we're thinking, these are the ideas we have. By all means, the conversations are going to ebb and flow with them, but to answer your question, we had a meeting with them. This goes back years before the committee was more formal in nature, and they did come out and sit down with us. There is a representative that's assigned to this area, and they were very open to coming in and sitting down and talking to us. I think we were a lot more loosey-goosey back then. We weren't quite as organized and structured and had a plan like we do now. But to your point, I think they will come and sit and talk to us about it.
And what I would say, I mean, in the discussion we have them, even more loosey-goosey back then, they want the pond to be healthy, and they recognize, frankly, by law, it needs to be navigable, right? So that's a right, right? So you have a right for it to be navigable, to maintain navigability, right? I think the questions on the table are, and I think they made clear, the DNR is never gonna give you money for dredging. There might be other grants for dredging, but not from the DNR, so they're just never gonna do that. But they recognize that those things are required, and they approve dredging projects all over the state of Wisconsin all the time, right? So, I think the secondary question is how broadly can you do it, right? So I think that's one of the parts of these testing that we're doing is to help us understand what it's like today, how much silt is in there, where is the silt the heaviest, what's the health of the water, what's the health of those silt, and I think all those things will go into understanding what they will allow us to do. So.
And it's interesting to note that the pond actually has a special designation by the DNR as a sensitive area. So they're even more, cautious about what they approve and what they allow you to do. You have a question? Yeah.
You better check what the DNR calls navigable, because that's your feet wet. If you can walk in it and your feet are wet, that's navigable water to the DNR.
No, that's not true.
Yes, it is.
Well-
I deal with wetlands all the time.
Okay, in my research in my home village, they said a boat needs to be able to float in it. So that's a little bit deeper than just in
They've told us currently, we have discussion currently, that we have discussion about what we can do today, like around our different properties, and they've clearly said that you have a right to go clean up. Within 50 yards, I think, of 50 feet of my dock, you're allowed to go, you can really go pull out silt and pull out lily pads, anything you want, within 50 feet to maintain navigability. So they've been pretty clear that you have a right to get your boat in and out, right? Now, how broadly that means what you can do, to be defined, right? But that's what they told us.
I've talked to the DNR several times. They're willing to give us permits, but they're not willing to give us 10 cents.
Right,
Right.
correct. Yeah.
Okay? And this is something that Green Lake has lived with because of that. They're willing to give us permits, no money.
Right. And I'll just remind everybody, when we start coming up here, and you should try and take your boat into what's now Dartford Bay.
Joe, was that in regards to digging out canals?
We could, at that time, it was navigable waterways, and they would okay to dredge it, and they wanted to know what we were gonna do with the silt, and they said, where are you gonna get the money? And the city didn't have the money then, we don't have it now.
If you ever have an hour to kill, if you want to go look at the DNR site, there's more information on this kind of stuff than you could even imagine. They'll let you extend your pier out as far as you need to go to summer length of, like an average
3
summer.
feet, 3 feet of water and
Exactly.
or the water depth at your boat if it has enough water.
Exactly, and somebody mentioned about lily pads, you can actually touch them if there's a perimeter around your pier that they want you to be able to get in and get with the boat. However, they will only allow you to take them out by non-mechanical means
Right.
without a permit. If you need to do it with some mechanical tools, you have to get a permit. So there's all kinds of information out there. But basically what we're looking to basically get funding for is for 2 tests. So one, basically, it'll test the sediment composition, right? Is it soft? Is it thick? What is the composition? Are there chemicals in there? Phosphorus? They will test for harmful chemicals, because that changes the whole game. If you're looking at a dredging project and you have hazardous waste chemicals in there, because they have to be handled specially by state law, and that's costs more money, etc. Honestly, everybody we've talked to, they don't anticipate that being the case, but nonetheless, you have to test it. You have to send it to a certified lab here in Wisconsin that'll do the testing and produce the results. So we test for sediment volume and characteristics. Right now, our goal is to basically fund the first test that we want to do, which is a bathymetric survey, which basically, you've probably seen topical views of bodies of water where it shows, even for Green Lake.
Like a fishing.
Yeah, where it
like a
shows
fishing,
depths of
fishing
the
sonar.
water in various locations. So they go out in a boat and they have, special equipment that pushes sound waves off the bottom of the boat and measures, the depth of the water, and it will produce a map that shows, what it looks like all around the mill pond, where it's deep, where it's shallow, etc. And that'll essentially give us an idea of how much volume of sediment is actually in there. And that's the test that we want to have when we go and sit down with the DNR, because they're going to logically ask the question, well, how much sediment are you talking about removing, right? So that's a test we're currently talking to a consulting firm. That's a test we hope to get done within the next, I'd say, 3 to 6 months, probably. Again, this stuff takes time. You have to do it at certain times a year, but that's a test that we're working on right now. And as I said, that kind of informs your discussion with the DNR, okay? So there's a little bit of repetitive here, but we've also talked to these engineering firms, and they've done dredging projects all around the area. There's a lot of different ways to dredge a body of water, and I know, Joe, you've been involved in this before. You've got a lot of knowledge just from your discussions on this before. From what we can tell, for the most part, it's pretty much understood that hydraulic would be the way to potentially dredge the mill pond, which is basically pumps and pushing water through a system that pumps it out. Lots of different ways you can collect the sediment. You can put it in these eco bags. You can pump it onto a farm if somebody will let you do that, which frankly would be the most economical. The big cost, or one of the big costs in dredging, is the removal of the sediment, right? So you gotta put that stuff somewhere, and we actually may have, an interested party that may allow us to pump that stuff into a farm location, because you can push this stuff pretty far, and it's actually pretty good and nutritious stuff for a farm, as long as it doesn't have hazardous chemical to it. So that's something we're looking at. But you can do mechanical dredging, which is basically getting in there with, pushing and shoveling the sediment out. But I think the general consensus is hydraulic is probably the approach we would take with the DNR. Okay. And we've already talked about, so there are no grants for dredging per se, but there are other development and voting program, access programs that do include dredging in part of the funding mechanism. we're not there yet, right? All of this is gonna lead to a discussion with the DNR, and they're the gatekeeper, right, to all of this, right? So, again, our approach is to be collaborative with them, take a balanced approach, but right now, that's our plan, is the bathymetric testing. Once we go have a discussion with the DNR, our hope is they'll say, well, yeah, that's great. We'd like you to go and do the sediment testing for composition to make sure there's no hazardous material or any of that, and then we'll kind of go from there. But that's kind of the update on the dredging and testing part.
In terms of raising the bridge, I think we've talked a lot about this one. It's planned for 2030. They're gonna replace it, they'll replace it as it is. We want to get involved in that discussion and understand, like I said, we've heard a lot about the need not to widen it, but I will tell you that my son went under that bridge and his engine failed because it's gotten so shallow, it sucked up kinds of stuff right under the bridge, just to fail. And the boat, he tried to reverse it because the engine was dying, and it jerked up, smashed the window, cut him up. And it'd be great if it wasn't this much clearance above our boats, right? Once again, I don't think we have to make it high enough to bring in a sky bridge, right? But I think everybody who lives there today would say that I'm clearing with about this, and it'd be a lot safer if I was clearing with about this, right? And so I think that's the kind of discussion that we want to have with them when they're doing the bridge, and understand what the possibilities are to raise it up. That'll be part of the discussion, like I said.
Is that both bridges or just one?
What's the other bridge?
Just
The one going out of town and then the one over here.
Oh,
The one that's right over here by the dam,
Yeah.
that's already been slotted for 2026. And that's gonna be replaced as is.
Right over here.
Right,
Yeah.
Right here.
right here, sorry,
Wrong
thank you.
direction.
Right by the dam, is gonna be
Now,
replaced
what
right
about the
here.
main one going in?
That's the one that we're talking about for 2030. That's the one that we all take our boats under today, that's slotted for most likely 2030. Yeah. Okay. Economic development, Sean's gonna come talk about that.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of this, but I just want to reiterate what Richard said a moment ago, and that is, we don't know exactly what this is gonna look like in 3 years, 2 years, 5 years, whenever this gets out. But what we don't want to do is come to you and say, here's what the plan is, approve it. You've all got to buy in, you've all got input, you've got history. That's number one. Number two, we don't want to wake up 5 years from now and go, we've got a problem, and not be able to do something. So that's why we've invited you here, right? So we don't know what it's going to look like, but one of the things we could start thinking about is, what could it look like? We don't know if we're going to get the approval. We don't know what's going to happen with lily pads, but what could it look like? And I think one of the things that, I don't know how many people here live on the pond, but having a healthy mill pond is good, not just for the residents on Mill Pond, but it's good for everybody. I think if we look at the referendum that just came out, one of the things they said is tax base, real estate tax base. We're not building, et cetera. So if we can maintain a healthy mill pond and maintain value of those properties, that's going to be a good thing, I think, for overall Green Lake from a tax base standpoint. But again, some of the things we've already talked about, getting access into the mill pond, bringing people around the backside gets people over the hill. All right, so now they can come in and park closer to Town Square, be able to access the restaurants, things like that. You know, there was a person who had a business down by the Kite Hotel, and his business was lake toys, kayaks, paddle boards. He had those self-surfing surfboards. His vision was to go there and be able to access the mill pond and have people test it out. Now that would be very cool, but you can't do that right now. It's not navigable, and I think maybe there's even a policy against it. But what if you had a body of water that people could have a retail store by and now have a thriving store where they can make all their money in the summer so they don't have to close business and have an empty store there. So what if, right? So these are some of the things I think we have to be thinking about. Potential for Milltown boat slips, Milltown boat slips over by Town Square. But what if we even had boat slips over by 23 and Hattie Sherwood? What if you could have boat slips there, and people from Hattie Sherwood could park their boats there more economically? What if you didn't have to build a wharf all the way down the outside of the lakeside, which gets a beating because there's more churning or wave activity there? What if you could put some boat slips there to make it more easy for people to park, come from the other side of the lake and park there and walk into town? So these are the things. Are they gonna happen? We don't know. But we want you thinking about it too. What if people could come here with their kids, their grandkids themselves, hop on a paddle board, go boating around town, playing in a mill pond, when it's crazy windy out there with 3-foot waves, the mill pond's quiet, and you can be back there, and again, it's more excuses for people to be in town supporting our stores. Campers, they come over to Hattie Sherwood, it's kind of lousy over there. There's one way that they can get in. There's nobody swimming there. You got to go to the other side. But what if? So these are things we could be thinking about. This is crazy, and I know, okay, this isn't going to happen because there's a current there. But what if, instead of going over to Norwegian Bay for a band concert on the barge, what if we do it down here? And now you got 400 people who are in town, another excuse to support our retail, etc. So, does it happen? I don't know. That's a crazy idea, but that's how things start. Blue sky, blue water kind of thinking. But that's what we're thinking about, the possible benefits for having a mill pond that's more navigable, more accessible, more recreational, all right? And the other thing is, in a conversation I had with Mark Wilton, maybe Mark would be willing to say something. He just got approval, which is awesome, for Main Street, which is a really great opportunity. Is Mark still here?
Yeah.
There is. A great opportunity, but in the conversation with Mark, they've got visions for how this side of Green Lake might get developed in the future with retail. So Mark, I don't know if you want to say a few words of how this aligns with your vision, but you're welcome to share.
Put you on the spot.
Subject matter expert, I think I'd probably wing it, right? So, no, I appreciate the opportunity to kind of chat as well. So, some of the economic development is...
Does everybody know who Mark is?
No.
How are you? Okay, sorry, I'll start there, right? The guy with the funny accent in town.
He's
So, originally from New Zealand. My wife and I live here in downtown Green Lake on Hill Street, 4 kids, Green Lake School District. I'm the director of Green Lake Area Chamber of Commerce up the street here and sit on City Council. So, living and breathing Green Lake and its development, its revitalization, both for locals, residents like ourselves, and for visitors that come to town, is like, I live and breathe that every day, day in, day out. So, the last about 8 months, some of my own frustrations were trying to do some economic development activities around town under more of a municipal focus. Frustrated the heck out of me at the lack of productivity that I was kind of achieving there. So I started looking at other ways that we could try and support Green Lake, because if you're like me, I'm kind of sick of going to referendum. I'm also kind of sick of seeing property tax go up to a degree. So what are other solutions? I'm a solution-driven guy. So under the chamber umbrella, we started looking at things around what can we do to support local business, downtown revitalization efforts, and there's been a history of success in revitalization to a degree in Green Lake. I mean, I was looking at a comprehensive plan from the city of Green Lake from 1967 today. So there's been some things going on. So long story short, took 8 months to get an application together, and Wisconsin runs this Main Street program to support revitalization of small, rural, historic downtowns. What Green Lake's always been right on the fringe of is success. There's enough people that care about downtown. There's been funding come into it, but there's consistent stories of volunteer burnout or funding dried up, or we keep applying for grants and we keep getting turned down because we've not quite got our ducks in a row, right? So we started looking at opportunities to do it, and we had to put a whole lot of data together as part of this application. It took us about 8 months to put together. We had a big selection committee presentation to the state last week, the first week of May. And 2 big data points I want to share with you that kind of ties into all of this. Downtown vacancy in the city of Green Lake is at 18.75%. Now, state average is 2 to 8. We all know a couple of buildings downtown have sat vacant, I would call unnecessarily, for a while. So we need support there. And then when we look at seasonal vacancy, that number increases to 40% of our downtown is locked and shut during that off-season times, right? So I've kind of tasked the team, we've grown the team to 5 team members in preparation for this whole application as part of Wisconsin Main Street. What Wisconsin Main Street provides to one of what was 34 communities in the state of Wisconsin is now 36 because Green Lake just got it, is technical expertise. So there's renderings we just saw up there, right? So there's groups building up playgrounds, looking at mill pond redevelopment, needing support to be able to market the vision to the DNR, to fundraising, to all that sort of stuff. That technical expertise from downtown planning, that's what Main Street opens up. We now have this paid support to come to town, and they've all been to Green Lake. They come to town and go, where can we help? What do you need? They look at opening up facade improvement opportunities. So how can we support revitalization of the buildings itself to protect the history, revitalize the history as preservation, sorry. And it opens us up to grant opportunities. Now, I love that we talk about economic development. I talk with Sean a lot because the way to get anything funded like this is to prove to the state how much money it's going to put in their pockets. If we can do it, the funding starts coming in, right? And that's what Main Street allows. It becomes this conduit to the state where we can start funneling plans like this up to the state because we've now got the air that it can start opening up some stuff like this. Now, there's already been a win in town as a part of this. Scoots Cafe announced the other day that because in a very tight competition for grants, for a kind of a startup grant for brand new business, new development, their application got tipped over into acceptance because the community was lining its ducks in a row and as part of the Main Street program. So that was a huge win for business in town that is really being supported by the state. So I'm a big proponent of things economic development. There's a big opportunity with this. I don't want to see the pond obviously go backwards, which is the fear. So I guess from a Chamber of Commerce perspective, totally in support, and if there's a way that I can help be a conduit to the state and open up some funding resources and at least identify new opportunities, then yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. So, just to close this segment, I don't have the answers. I'm not here all that much. You guys are the ones that have the experience. So if you have ideas on what you think could work, or you have watch-outs to what to avoid, or what's been tried before, I want to hear them so we can come up with a plan that makes sense for the people who live in town, the people who vacation here, and for the businesses and the residents. So I'm open to whatever anybody wants to share, so please do share.
And the last thing I would just say is that Main Street, tell me if I have this wrong, Mark, but that Main Street program is a big part of what got Ripon revitalized, correct? They were part of that program.
Ripon was one of the first 5 businesses back in '88.
Right, and I think we can all agree that Ripon has gone through an amazing transformation from over the last 15 years, so very excited about that. Thanks, Mark. Okay, Rachel, talking a little bit about marketing and fundraising.
All right. Hello, everyone. All right, so we have been working on our website. We've been having community meetings like tonight. We've been in the newspaper. Annette's been working on social media. I just had my community fundraiser. All of these things help us raise money to be able to do some of the things that we need to get done, like this testing, which is really important. Short-term funding needs. Establishing nonprofit, which we have. We've got a website hosting, we already have that. The testing, we're working on that for the, I'm gonna mess that up with bathymetric survey. Silt and water testing, grant writing, which Main Street will also help with, I believe, some of that. Engineering designs and permit fees. Donations, we need individuals to help, businesses to help, nonprofits, the city, grants, Main Street, all of those can all help. We're doing a ton of fundraising. So we have t-shirts that we are all wearing. These are great t-shirts, by the way, super soft. $25 a t-shirt. I just had the Adams Road Community Fundraiser, so some of the money for that this year will also go to that. We're doing 50-50 raffles, for the chamber events and a brat fry. I think we'll have a couple of them this year. So if anyone has any other ideas for doing any fundraising at all, please come to us, let us know. If you wanna help volunteer, help get all this up, we can't do it without all of you.
Our first big goal is about $20,000 is what we need, frankly, to get the testing done that we need to do and cover some of the smaller administrative programs. I'd say we're about a third of the way there.
Yep.
And so our goal is to try to get that done over the next couple months so that we can be doing this testing as Greg talked, sort of in the, we have to wait for the weeds to clear out a little bit, so probably like in September, October time when they would do the testing, so.
For the DNR,
Yeah,
correct.
that's it.
So once again, if you have any questions or ideas, please come sign up for some committees which are on the front table up
Yeah,
there.
we'll talk about that. So how can you participate? So we have a whole bunch of committees, which I'll show you in a second, of interest that you can sign up for. So if you have an interest in marketing, or in part of being engineering, or part of discussions with the DNR, or raising funds, whatever it is, we'd love for you to help. Buy a t-shirt, talk about, donate. Spread the news. So please tell everybody you know about the Friends of Mill Pond, what we're trying to do. Stay updated by signing up for, hopefully you all signed in when you came in. If you didn't, please do that so we can keep you updated. And then just communicate your support with the city and other community members when you see people. Create the buzz. It's a small town, right? It doesn't take many people to get the word out around Green Lake. You'll see sign-up sheets on that other table back there. So we've got marketing, dredging, the bridge, fundraising, pond health, design engineering, economic development, government, and grant writing. So any of those you're interested in, you can sign up for multiple ones, just give us your name, and then the people leading those committees from our leadership group will reach out to you when we start to have things that we need help with and get people involved. So, okay? Really appreciate that. So, there've been a lot of really good questions. We want to open up for the other questions or thoughts that people have. As Sean and John both said, input is really helpful. That's what this is all about today.
So we already have Green Lake Association, which is a huge organization for the city.
Yes.
And it's had huge fundraising efforts, and it has an infrastructure. Are we basically gonna have a second Green Lake Association?
No.
In terms of the pond? I'm very confused so far by, at first you said, well, the relationship with the DNR is gonna come as part of the master plan for the Green Lake Association. And then in the latter part of it, you said, well, you're in direct conversation with especially with the sanitary district and the DNR. And so it seems to me we've got another fundraising element. It's gonna duplicate a hell of a lot of what we're already trying to fund.
So we've talked with the GLA multiple times, and they've been a great partner. They provide us a lot of great information. And I'd say a lot of the awareness we've built has led to them building us as part of the master plan. What they've communicated to us is they're focused on the lake.
But I think this has a major impact on the lake.
Correct. But they've told us that their efforts are focused on the lake. And they are very excited for us to bring awareness, develop a plan, partnering with them, and raising funds. And they may ultimately help us raise some of those funds against Mill Pond. But if we leave it to them, it will be very low on their priority list right now versus other things that they're trying to do. So they said, we really appreciate you guys raising this and working with us and being sort of an add-on to what we do with a very specific focus on Mill Pond, because it probably wouldn't make our priority list right now. So that's why we're doing it. It's a separate entity.
Have you been in contact with environmental groups that might have other suggestions about how to deal with the sludge and the raising level of the pond? Is dredging the only solution, or is there a possible other solution?
So let me say we've talked to the experts that we know today, which are the GLA, the DNR, the sanitary district. Those are the experts, and also some of the engineering firms that we've talked with. Open to any other recommendations or ideas of groups that we can talk to about what we might do. Very open to ideas. Everything we've heard so far has been that that's ultimately, what needs to be done. But open to any other ideas and things we might not be aware of for sure.
And are you in contact with more than one company about the bathymetric study?
Yeah, so we've talked to 2 or 3 different companies, and we've gotten bids from 2 on doing that, and we're in the final stages of picking which of those that we're gonna choose to work with to do that. But open, once again, if somebody has a connection or a relationship with somebody, that would be outstanding. That'd be terrific, thank you. Other questions?
Well, the first thing you gotta identify is where's the silt coming from? If it's coming from the main lake and you clean it up and the lake is still dirty, it's gonna be another, you know.
I think unfortunately, I think you're right, which is over time, but I think the answer is this didn't get built up in 2 years, this got built up over 30 years, right? No? I mean, I will tell you, I've been here for 20 years, okay?
Well, I could tell you my story if you wanna listen to it.
Sure, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Come on up.
I'm Dave Norton. I'm a fourth generation in Green Lake here. We came here in the 1850s. I grew up on the back pond. I've been heavily involved. I learned how to swim in the back pond. When I got up in the morning, the first thing I looked out my bedroom window was at the back pond. Our day started and finished at the shore of the back pond. It was a great place to grow up because we messed around in little boats. You know, every kid in town learned how to swim in the back pond. They wouldn't let us go out on the big lake because, you know, it just wasn't. So in my lifetime, I've seen it when I was young and we had water lilies there naturally, okay? And everything was pretty cool. We used to play in what we call Mud Turtle Canal, which is on the other side of the pond from Sean's there. There were boathouses down there that we played in behind there. There were beautiful Chris Crafts that we sat in and sang songs and stuff like that. But we were mostly juvenile delinquents. We were mostly the rite of spring was we always swam on May 1st in the back pond. My family didn't start, you know, right where the marina is down there. It was right by Mary Rowley's place. That was the Norton Homestead. And they rowed their little rowboats out through a culvert to where their steamboats were kept just outside the bridge. And then eventually the bridge got bigger and so what would really happen is the back pond is really a marsh and it's trying to become a marsh again. That's the problem that you're always gonna have. No matter what you do to the back pond, it's gonna try to go back to where it started, okay? So I don't know that they're gonna allow you to dredge the whole thing. I mean, and if you're really gonna be fair to everybody, you gotta dredge the whole thing. You know, and then you gotta put slips in so that people that live in Green Lake County can come rent one, okay? They're probably not gonna let you do that. I've been involved in I actually cleaned up the back pond in 1976. I was the project manager for the Green Lake Association's mechanical weed harvesting operation when it came to Green Lake. And we spent a month and a half back there. We took out probably 200 stumps. There was a Navy raft there that had been sunk for who knows what. And I mean, we took out tons and tons of stuff. Then the water lilies came back. And they don't like it messing with the water lilies. But when we took the mechanical weed harvester and basically dredged all the dead stuff because there was a slime that was that thick on the top, you couldn't go 10 feet without getting a full load on the machine.
Question.
Then once we got that slime and stuff out of there and all the dead stuff, it came back.
Dave?
I got a question for you.
Yes.
You said twice now that it was a marsh or pond and it wants to return to that. And I hear that point. Nature wants to return to its original place. So I have two questions. One is, does that mean you're suggesting really we should let it go back to what it was initially and leave it go? Or do we want to dredge it and make it usable for the people who are living on it? That's the question that we all have to face. And the second thought is that when I grew up, we had a place on Huygen, which was a very large lake, but that was dredged by I don't know who,
Or
years ago, because that was all
But
marsh.
that was for steamboat travel, that was for commerce.
Yeah, but the point remains is that is also a place that would like to return to nature. And do they have experience about how long the cycle is? How long are we looking at that it might fill in again? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of different conditions that affect that, but you know, if it's worthy to keep this place usable for all of us, do we just commit to a 30, 40, 50-year cycle?
But that's always the question, what does man really want?
Yeah.
What I want and you want are two different things. You'll fight for what you want, I'll fight for what I want. There's always this compromise. And this is where you run into the dredging aspect of it. What do you dredge? Do you dredge just so that you can get boats to navigate?
Yeah.
And quite honestly, navigation, I own wetlands, and let me tell you, navigation is by wet water, okay? So they can gain access, but that more has to do with trespassing than actual navigation about what we're talking about here. So if you dredge the whole thing, you're looking at a massive operation. Massive operation. Mike?
I live on the east end, and I have since 1977 been there. And if you know our property, we're on a ridge, and it overlooks the lake. So my lot's very long, very narrow. And we dredged the place below. If you look at my boathouse, it's not on the water anymore, it's on solid land. And the creek is this. Well, that was the 1980s that we did it, and I gotta tell you, we're right back where we were. It's getting shallower and shallower every year, and there are springs in it. So I guess where I'm coming from is do we want to start a big project on the east end to dredge our area out again? And my answer is, I don't think so. I think what you gotta do, if you can, is pick a solution that has a long-term thing. I don't think you can afford it to start dredging this thing every 20 or 30 years. And I think I'm a pretty good proxy for what's gonna happen to you if you dredge it. You're gonna be looking at it in 30 years from now, you're gonna be raising money to try to do the same thing.
What would you suggest instead? Just out of interest.
I don't know, I'm just saying, I don't think that's a long-term answer. I think that's a short-term
Depends
answer.
on how extensive you wanna go. I was involved in other than growing up in Green Lake, I decided that I wanted to be a filmmaker. So I went to school for film, in 1972, me and another guy met with Dean Bergstrom, the Rich Bergstrom, that wanted to clean up the Fox River. He had a scientist hired, but he was paying him $200,000 a year to try to figure out how to clean up the Fox River, okay? In 1972, they did not have the technology that they have today. They could have done it. It would have cost about $35 million to clean up the Fox River. They were gonna take the spoils out, haul them to some site, bury them in the ground, and then put rock in the thing. Well, because part of the problem was the transportation, okay? And at that time, they didn't know about putting it in a bag and sealing it up and taking it someplace. So it failed. Nobody would allow them to do it because they were gonna spread the stuff all over the place. When they finally cleaned it up, this is another ironic thing, I sold the guy that was handling the project on the Fox River a boat, and he told me exactly how they were gonna do it this time. They were gonna dredge it, put it into bags, just like they did in the mill pond here. They're gonna take it out to the site, because that was all contaminated stuff. And they did it, they just completed the project. It went from $35 million to $1 billion. Well, from 72 to 2000, they've been working on it 10 years. So think what you gotta understand out here is, you better really figure out what you wanna do out there. I'm not, I have no feeling other than, I grew up on that pond. It is probably in better shape today than when I was a kid, okay? The plant life, and I'm not necessarily telling you that the water depth is what you want. You know, I didn't have those expectations. I had a little rowboat with a pair of oars. I could go any place out there I wanted to, and there were times where we couldn't go because the slime was so bad. So it changes over time. But I don't think the DNR would allow you, from my conversations with them about other projects that I've been involved in, that they're gonna let you do the whole thing. So then you have to say, okay, if you decide that you're gonna dredge your canals and everything, are you then gonna put in bulkheads so that you don't have anything coming into the lake? Are you gonna stop putting fertilizer on your lawn? Because you're contributing to everything. If you do that, you're contributing to, so I mean, this is gonna be a lifestyle change if you really wanna do it the right way. If you really wanna protect it down the line, you know? And, you know, the drawings are really nice, but boy, that's an expensive project that you're talking about. And one thing I think when you're talking about in front of the dam there, I think you don't wanna put your things out that way.
Okay, that's
The
helpful.
the reason being is you have a catastrophic flood, it's gonna take that and it's gonna push it right into the dam. You're gonna take the whole thing out, take the dam with it, you know, that's the other thing.
That's good. Once again, we're not engineers, we're just trading business, so that's very helpful.
And I like what you're doing in the Canal Street thing, but that's, to be honest with you, do you really want any more people on the lake?
I wanna make sure we get to other questions, so, yeah.
I think your conversation would be more apt to get together with the group
Yeah.
and discuss your concerns that way.
Yeah.
And
I'm just trying to.
I understand
Any questions?
your
about that?
lifelong history here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Joe?
Everything that he said is proper, but we've never looked at retention. What causes the problem? It's the population. Many have fertilizer and all that, I'll buy that. The idea is that we've got a problem here.
Yeah.
Do we want to address it or don't we? And I applaud you guys. You have no idea how I applaud you from the bottom of my heart. We have the people behind us. This problem is made by people. There is no retention. You've got a 36-inch drain coming in off of King Street into my backyard. There's no retention. Do the people care? Now, the city is in debt. They need money. What you guys proposed in the mill pond, do you know how many boat slips the city could get $1,000 a year for? In Dartford Bay? It's revenue. And I applaud the chamber we've got right now. He's trying to make us grow. We need what is called money, revenue. You guys, like I said, I applaud you. God bless you. But the idea is that, what do we want here? It's something for us to grow with this city. It's a beautiful place. And all the businesses downtown would prosper if we had a 500, or I think like 100 boat slips in the mill pond.
And we like I said, as Sean said, we appreciate all this input, right? It's unbelievably helpful, right? And so we're learning a lot, and we're gonna learn a lot along the way, right? What I don't wanna do as a part of this community is be sitting up on the porch at a party 15 years from now and going, geez, I wish somebody had stepped up and tried to figure out what's going on and what we should do about it, right? And that's why we're all here trying to do that, right? And we're gonna learn a ton, and this is one of our first open meetings to get the input, so we
My
appreciate it.
grandkids used to jump off my dock into 6 to 8 foot of water.
Same.
Now they have 18 inches.
Yep.
And then somebody in the council told my wife, get a smaller boat.
I mean, I had to jump in because my engine died, and I jumped in to tow my boat because I wasn't too far from my dock, and I had muck up to here.
I think you could drown. You could drown in it. You could just.
It was like
That's nothing new, that's been there.
So these are all, once again, and a lot of the points brought up is, we're gonna learn what we can do and what we can't do, right? But I can tell you, what we've learned from everybody is, if I can just may, until we do this bathymetric survey, right, and do the testing, every discussion we have with the DNR is gonna be a hypothetical and a maybe, and there's gonna be, right, until we come with this data, they're not gonna engage in a serious, okay, here's what we will actually give you discussion.
Has anyone ever looked into the reason we have lost all the frogs and the turtles? It has to be tied to the same principle of the gook coming in. So it has to be something else, but right now, you can't find the turtles, you can't find the frogs, you can't even find the.
Well, one thing we've heard from everybody is, and this is part of what the testing tells us, part of the problem is the silt has a lot of phosphorus in it, right? So it then creates more growth, right? Which then creates more problems, right? I think everyone would agree that all this phosphorus and all this algae growing is not good for the health of the lake,
It kills the
right?
oxygen, which.
And not good for the pond, right? So that is the other benefit of removing the silt, is there's a lot of phosphorus in that silt, which is not healthy for the body of water.
Pot of carp too.
And the
Yeah.
critters, you're absolutely right.
There was a question?
You have a question?
Me, thank you. Hi, I'm Tom Haller, and I'm curious if you know, is the rate of change back to a swamp, is it accelerating? Is it staying the same? Has it been decreasing? And do you know anything about making the change to a no wake and what impact that has on the mill pond and silt buildup?
So we don't have there was never a survey done that we can compare to that I'm aware of. So, but once again, the GLA did a lot of testing on the lake areas, but there hasn't really been much done on the pond, at least we were told.
If you look at the 96-page report they just filed,
Yeah.
on page 55, you'll find a description of the plant life health on the mill pond.
Right.
Correct.
So that, you're absolutely right. That plan is more geared towards the aquatic aspect of it, not so much the sediment piece of it, right? And the GLA will tell you, we've never really, it's not something we've ever really addressed or looked at. So to your point, there's no records that say, 20 years ago it was X. It's all anecdotal.
It's about
frankly.
the same.
But while we're looking at
about the
room and
same.
dune, if you look at that study of your health of your plant life,
So you think it's consistent?
is pretty
hard.
good.
It goes up and down,
you have very few
depending on
invasives.
water
You're
levels and
less than
stuff like that,
7%.
that's.
On the mill pond?
Yep, it's in good health, and guess where you do have the problem? It's right where you've got people, on the edge, where there are houses now. So it gets back to phosphorus in their lawns and what the hell's going on. And so you ought to keep what you got, that's pretty good, and I agree, there's no.
From an aquatic perspective, yeah.
Yeah, but my concern is not against, I agree with, if people know me, I'm Mike Zook and I'm with the Dartford Historical Society, and I applaud anything to improve the long-term health of the community. But the lake is the foundation of this whole damn thing, and if we don't if you come up with a solution that economically works and makes everything short-term work, but yet we're killing the lake in the long term, then we've lost.
Yeah,
And that
I don't disagree, but I don't think we're in conflict with improving the lake. I think we're in support of it. To go back to your question, so I don't think we have a good benchmark. I think there's a lot of anecdotal in terms of what it's filled in. In terms of the no wake, there's different, people have views on it. I would say, I think there's a belief that the lack of the boats stirring it up and then setting it down has made it seem like it's filling in worse. From a personal perspective, how much ability I had to raise my engine before versus now, I'd say it seems like it's getting worse at an accelerated rate. I can't say that's specific to the no wake, but people we've talked to the sanitary district, they firmly believe that the no wake has gotten rid of the storing up, which is a good part of the boats going through the work.
Wait, I'm sorry, so they're saying that's a good thing?
When the boats were going through, it was storing up. Now,
Yes.
there's separate issues about the no wake in terms of, there's a lot of questions around, was it always a no wake and just not marked as a no wake? And so, that's a whole separate discussion
Right,
we can get
But
into, but.
the reason why I raise it up is that do we create, if that were to go back in place, did we create some kind of a channel by going through on plane as opposed to putting through
Yeah, you did.
in the center? My guess is, and my experience is that yes, going up on plane created a harder surface, and with multiple boats going through in the same general path, there was a center area that was a little deeper and a little more consistent.
I don't disagree with
And
that.
then part of that is what's growing there, because if you're constantly going over it on plane, stuff doesn't grow there. When you go slow, it gives opportunity for growth.
Yeah, for sure. Other questions or comments? All right, I think we're gonna call it there. We'll have more meetings in the future. We'll make sure you guys are all on the mailing list to hear that. Please sign up for subcommittees of things you'd be willing to help out on or have interest in. We appreciate all the feedback and all the input. And we'll kind of continue to move forward and share as we learn more. So,
Like I said, we can't do this without all of you, so please help.
help us out. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Kanye.
Yeah.
There's a ridge.
Yep.
Okay, you know where Burr lives? Rick?
Yeah.
I'm across this road down about 3 things. We have a whole series of cottages, and we have what is now a pond, which is in front of the house, but that didn't know it used to be there. And the thing that makes me angry is the dredge still. But
There's no water movement.
and that word, never know losing your water, it's gonna go back. And I'm not gonna spend money to take all that crap out again. So I want a long-term solution. That's what I'm
I know, I agree. I don't wanna be doing this again for 20 years.
Go out there and put aerators
So
up there,
how do we
and you'll be
stop it?
improved what you see, stuff the aerators will lift that up, they'll go down the punch end, it's like, well, Rippon's giving it to the Green Lake, and we're giving it to them.
That my dog was like this. I've got aerators in now, and it's 4 feet deep, and it's a solid bottom.
So, that may be.
I don't want the
one way
big,
of,
I just wanna have a little pier on the side. I wanna get people to fish, maybe go swimming.
That way you don't spend any money on it, you can do it with windmills.
The DNR, but it's stupid. You may have to create a channel.
Correct.
That works.
But that's the way it used to be, was the channel that would be there because of the weight.
From what I know, like getting on my paddleboard in April,
Right.
you go back by that Sugar 23, there's hundreds of northern spawning.
Well, that's when we fished back there. We didn't fish back there when the weeds got thick. We fished back there when the fish was in.
I tell you what, there was a carp this big in there, this guy in the other end. But that was a big fish.
But it's people would stop fertilizing their lawn and growing. I watch people take the leaves from up above and throw them into the
Nice to meet you.
in
The only red, right where that is.
I know. I know. All because they don't want to dandelion in their yard. It just kills me.
But doing this stuff that's not scheduled,
Or they don't want anything in front of their house in front of the rocks, so they take away all the lily pads, they take away all the.
it wasn't a recreational.
Yeah, but that's the stuff that makes that shit.
This is the only, well, now we're out there, this kind of video, so you can get some.
I know. Don't get me started on all that. That's a whole other.
Yeah, that's on that
You know,
side.
here you got a business, you raise money every year.
Now that controls that.
I would love to see people out there fishing. I would love to see people paddling, kayaking. Yeah. Not saying that they don't do it now, but if we don't do something, I'm afraid that we won't have that. And I don't want it to get to that point.
The other thing I'm very worried about is, we only have so many economic resources in the we tap them every way we can. I'm raising money.
I know, people are tired
You
of
know,
giving money.
everybody's got libraries.
They're all tired of giving money.
Right, and so now we're putting on fundraising out. They actually train.
I know. But that's why we need everyone's great because I can't. That's what I said. I said, why don't we everyone area
And that's what we're probably.
push that out to the middle, and then that's exactly what I suggested. Because Sean actually put one or two of them on his deck. It looks beautiful there now. Yeah.
And that's what we're.
I'm curious how long we can shut that off. It's an interesting idea.
Good to see
Why don't
you.
you two blow it? We
No,
got,
I
we
think
got
the
two guys.
aerators are a great idea.
Well, we're gonna use that probably on our part too.
Yep. But if
But
everyone
it is,
put one
but we
in,
are just, it's going back. You know,
but you need to push it out, and then it needs to go up
Here's
and
the
over.
issue. The sediment in Green Lake from the inlet all the way to where it turns and comes into the Van Pond, and that's 10 feet deep.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to take that on something that don't want to say it's like Polish.
Yep.
Because they said turn that up, guess what's gonna come? It's gonna come right to the pond, and the roots are gonna hold it there.
Yeah. Well, right now.